Okay, so today's maths video is about creating a pie chart. Now, firstly, before I get into this, let me say this is the most difficult video that I've made before because it is so many different concepts in one that I am a little bit concerned about it being too tricky, but we are going to go through it in class. I just thought I'd make this video as a way, so if you do get confused and you want to go back and check on this video to make sure that you remember every single part of it, it's just a refresher. So we'll go through it all together and we'll explain why a pie chart is useful and also how it works. So let's get into it. Let me just make sure I'm going to float on top of this video for a second. Good. Okay. What you're going to need to have make a pie chart. You're going to need to have a set of data. Okay, so your data here is about what sport do you like to play, and they've surveyed different people on what their sports are. You're going to need to have some data like that to make your graph. We're not really going to make a pie chart for different changes over time. Once again, we talked about that being line graphs. This is more about categories and how popular something is. So you're going to need to have that. The second you're going to need to have is this protractor here. Some of you have protractors that go all the way up to 360 degrees, and that's awesome, but most of you would have this one which goes up to 180. You're going to need it. It's the most important part. The third thing you're going to need is a calculator. You won't hear me say this often in Year 6, but you will not be able to do this without a calculator. You're going to need to have one because it gets really difficult otherwise. Okay, so what is a pie chart? How does it work? Usually pie charts are a really good visual way of showing how popular something is. Sometimes column graphs you have to kind of analyze it, but a really good visual way of seeing it is by this pie chart you see here. It's very clear to see that the red one, the romance movies, were the most popular type of movie the people they surveyed, because we can see that up here they had 4, 5, 6, 1 and 4 people like those categories respectively, and we can see down here it's really clear to see which parts of the pie which and how popular they were. Now when we're talking about the parts of a pie, we're going to call them sectors, so which sector of the pie. Okay, so you can see here that they've managed to figure out what percentage each of those people liked. So 20% of people like sci-fi, 5% of people like drama, 30% of people like romance, 25% of people like action, and 20% of people liked comedies. Now we're going to quickly go through how do we find a percentage, and then also how do we find how much to draw, because when these people figured out a percentage, that's not what helped them draw the pie graph, because they're making the percentages are out of 100, but we're trying to find out how to draw around our whole circle, which is 360 degrees, so it's going to be different. We can't make ours out of 100, that just won't work. Alright, I know it's still confusing, I get it, but stay with me because it's going to get easier. Alright, maybe not, I don't know, we'll see. Alright, so let's figure out firstly how to do percentages. When we're doing percentages, we're going to, just in general, let's say if you were doing a test and you got 25 out of 40. Alright, let's write that in. Let's insert a text box and said you got 25 out of 40 in your test. That's how you went in your test. And you want to know what percentage you got. Well, if you look at this formula will work for you. So you write whatever the score you got out of the score altogether, and you times that by 100. So if we times, let me get my calculator up here. We should follow this: 25 divided by 40, because that's what there was total score, and then we're going to times that by 100. Our percentage we got was 62.5%. That doesn't look like it should look, but you get my drift. Okay, so how did we do that? Once again, we took our score that we got and we divided it by the score altogether, and then we times that by 100. Okay, like a quick way. Let's say if you got 48 out of 50 for a test, if you times that, it would be 96%. Useful, not necessarily helping us at this point in time with drawing our pie graph, because with our pie graph we're trying to find out how many degrees to make each part of the pie. The sector's got to be, 4 people liked it, so how many degrees do I draw it? So instead of trying to find out percentage of 100 now, we're going to try to find out, basically, it's effectively like the percentage of 360 degrees. but we don't call it percentage. So we're going to try to do the same thing, except instead of timing it by 100, we're going to times this one by 360, and that should tell us how many degrees of the pie we need to draw. Sorry, we need to draw. So let's do another example, not the one we've used. Let's use a different example. Let's say if you were doing a pie graph and you wanted to say 2 people out of 20 in my survey liked this flavor of ice cream. Okay, so you follow this rule. So how popular was something? There was 2 people that liked it out of how many people altogether? So out of 20 people, and then we're going to times that by 360 because there's 360 degrees. So we want to find out how many degrees our thing should be. So we pull up our calculator again. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this line here, this over, like the fraction line, when we're writing that in a calculator, we just use divide. Okay, so 2 divided by 20 times by 360 degrees. It comes out as 36. Now, we don't write that as 36, we write that as 36 degrees, because that's how many degrees we're going to have to draw that sector of the pie for this one. Okay, starting to make sense. Hopefully it's starting to make sense. Let's go through to our chart that we did at the start, and we'll see if we can try to firstly figure out how we can find what the degrees will be for each of these ones. So 4 people out of 20. How many people altogether? Wait, let's count. There's 4, 8, 9, 15, 20. There's 20 people altogether. Okay, so there's 20 people altogether. So that means that we're going to have to, if I'm looking at my formula here, this one would be 4 over 20 times by 360. This one would be 5 over 20 times by 360. This would be 6 over 20 times by 360, 1 over 20 times by 360, and 4 over 20 times by 360. Which I have done here earlier. So now we've got to try to figure out what the answers to these are. So we get our calculator again. I'm hoping that, this will work. Okay, so we're going to cancel it. 4 over 20 times by 360. Okay, 72. So the first chunk of my the sector of my pie chart is going to be 72 degrees. Okay, I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Actually, no, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to write degrees, D for degrees, next to the next one, so I don't have to get stuck with this. Now, I'm not even going to figure out the last one, the sci-fi one. I'm going to go through and I'm going to paste that one in there because they're both the same, so they're going to be the same amount. Okay, the next one, I'm going to get a calculator again. 5 divided by 20 times by 360. This one is going to be 90 degrees. Romance, let's get that one out. 6 over 20 times by 360. The answer is 108 degrees. And the last one here, get your calculator out. 1 divided by 20 times by 360 equals 18 degrees. Now that you've... okay, why didn't that work? Alright, you're going to do this and find out the degrees of all of these before you start drawing your pie chart. Okay, because what you're going to do now is you're going to add these up and make sure they make 360. If they don't make 360, you've gone wrong somewhere. 72 plus 18 plus 108 plus 90 plus 72 equals 360. Good. I know that if I draw each of these the same by the way they're supposed to be, then I will get my 360 degree pie chart. Okay. So here you see I've written them all in here. And now that you've got those, how do we do it? How do we do it? Well, we get our pie chart with a dot in the middle, and we're going to draw our first line to symbolize, to show. So we put that there, right? You with me? Yep. And we're going to rule a line on the bottom It's really hard. I can't draw on PowerPoint, so it's going to be hard for me to figure this out, but we'll give it a best shot. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line from here to here, my first line. Now I'm going to draw my first one, which is comedy. Okay, remember that, comedy. So my comedy one was 72 degrees. So I'm going to draw another line. There's 50, 60, 70, 72 is kind of there. I'm going to do my best, but don't be critical if I'm a little bit off. Okay, so let's say I can't really get any closer than it's really hard with this computer, sorry guys. Okay, let's say it's there. Okay, I think that's 74. I apologize for that. Okay, so I wonder if I could just slightly move it. No, can't move it. I'm not going to worry about it now. Okay, so now that comedy one will go in there, and it's perfect. Right, so now we're going to draw the next one. The next one is action, which is 90 degrees. So we're going to turn, watch, it's going to be hard with this. We're going to turn our protractor around so that now, sorry, that looks right. Okay, now this line here is now 0. And now we're going to measure out 90 degrees. Perfect, this should be easy because 90 is really good solid number that's going to be easy to do. Okay, I'm going to make sure that's right in the middle. I'm just going to make sure that my protractor is right in the middle of the center of the circle, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so then I'll insert and I'll draw 90 degrees here, straight up is my next one. Now I can move away and I've got my, if I wanted to, obviously I'll do it now just to show you what I would do. Comedy. We will fix this up later with it, but just so you don't forget, that one's comedy and this one here is action. I'm not going to go through all of them because I will seriously bore you guys more than I already need to. But one more thing. So now I'm doing this one. I would turn it around. Sorry guys, I think it's a bit off the screen at the moment. I apologize for that. Basically, you're trying to turn it around so now it's equal there. You would turn your page around, not have like what I'm doing where you're doing it upside down. Okay, and then you would start with that being 0, and the next one would be 108 degrees. So you'd go all the way to 108 and draw that section there. And then you would color that in as being your romance one, and you would keep going as you go along. Okay, so effectively what you're doing is you're starting from here as your base, your start, and you're going to draw, so when you first start, you're going to measure straight across on your first line, and then you're going to draw this first section with however many people like that thing into there, and then you keep moving your protractor alongward. So now that would be 0, and then you'd move on and on and on. At the end of it, you should have a proper pie chart that you should be able to then label and write in there comedy, action, and then color those in different colors. Make sure they're in different colors, because if you look through our other pie chart that we looked at here, that pie chart was all in different colors. And the final step will be, we're not going to go through that today, would be going back to percentages and writing in not just the degrees that it was, but the percentage of that. Like I said, I know this is a hard video, I get it, but let's go back to the main points of it. Okay, firstly, you're going to need to have your data, and it's the amount of people divided by the amount of people altogether that you surveyed, times by 360, and that will give you the degrees that you need to draw each sector. That's the main thing I want you to take away from this lesson. Alright, I hope it's been helpful. I'm sorry it's a long one, but I needed to make it like that. Alright, thanks for watching.